Brought to you by Penguin.
Chutzpah. Read and written by me, Yehudis Fletcher. This book is dedicated to all those forced to stay silent. The names and other identifying features of the people in this book have been changed, because who am I to tell another's story? I can only tell my own. I'm also going to add a note on terminology. I've used the term Haredi to describe the Jewish denomination in which I was brought up. The term Haredi is derived from the Hebrew verb lechared, meaning to tremble. The ch sound is soft, as it is in Bach and Chutzpah. Haredi literally means one who trembles before God. I still choose to use that term as an identifier, even though some would argue that Haredi describes a set of practices that exclude, for example, being out as a lesbian or a woman wearing trousers. My decision to identify as part of the Haredi community is simple. I never left, and you can't throw someone out of their own heritage. The term Haredi is often used interchangeably with ultra-Orthodox. I don't like that term because it denotes a hierarchy of religious practice, implying that some Jews are better Jews than others. We aren't. Prologue. Wash your hands. Ha'enosh me'elokai yitzdak, im me'osehu yitzhar gover. Can mortals be acquitted by God? Can man be cleared by his Maker? Job 4:17. I was 6 years old and determined to find out if there was actually a God. It was Friday night, the end of the week, and the beginning of our weekly Sabbath celebrations, and I was facing, head-on, the distinct possibility that he was about to smite me down dead. The sanctuary at the centre of the synagogue, or shul as we usually called it, that my father, the rabbi, presided over, was almost emptied of congregants who had finished their evening prayers and were ready to eat. Next door, in the shul hall, the table was set for dinner, as it was every Friday. The ugly, flat-topped 1960s building stood in stark contrast beside the high stained-glass windows, imposing pillars and arches of the synagogue itself. Each week, my parents headed the 2 wooden folding tables that had been pushed together to make one wide oblong, and my 6 siblings and I were expected to take our seats alongside a hodgepodge of worshippers who stayed to eat with us after the service. Some were regulars who came again and again, like Samuel, the student with a scraggly ponytail who always had his face buried in a book of Psalms, and Felicity, a convert who cried every Friday night on the front step. It was only years later that she worked out that the tears were down to a red wine allergy rather than some kind of religious exaltation. Others were transient, hungry strangers from other Jewish communities looking for a warm meal, like the Australian traveller who, I once clocked with a mix of confusion and appreciation, wore his pyjamas to both the service and dinner that night. The timing of the Sabbath, Shabbos to us, is determined by dusk, meaning the exact time it begins varies throughout the year. Invariably, though, it starts 20 minutes before sundown on a Friday evening and ends an hour after sunset on a Saturday. It always felt like a blanket of peace wrapped itself around us when Shabbos came in. For the next 25 hours, the world outside no longer mattered. We weren't to drive, use public transport, write, listen to the radio or use light switches, the telephone, oven, or any form of electricity. Instead, we engaged with family, friends, spirituality, and prayer. The change of pace permeated everything, and though it might seem restrictive to others, I loved it. What I didn't love was the bitterly cold synagogue hall, to which we decamped for the duration of Shabbos. My mother preferred to manage it this way, each week setting up sleeping bags on camp beds and skinny orange and brown mattresses for all 9 of my family members, because my little sister and I were too small to walk the 3
Sample complete. Ready to continue?